Call this meeting to order. Apparently Joe is not here. And the first order on the agenda, does somebody have the agenda? Because I've got something else. I've got the minutes up in front of me. Thank you. Is review and revise the agenda. And so I'm wondering if there are any things that need to be reviewed or revised. Yeah, it's seeing none. Let's move on to the minutes. So the minutes for November 2nd were sent out by John, and I've had the opportunity to review them, but what I do is entertain a motion to accept the minutes and second it, and then I have a couple of comments. So would somebody like to move to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. I took a look at them, and under the Article 4 on page 2 of 5, under transportation, I think at the time, at the very bottom there, Mr. Barris, member of the public and a school bus driver, observed that transportation coordinators are trained by the state to set routes and stops in with the community. I think I also made a remark at the time that in our town, the school board sets the route because we don't have a transportation coordinator. So I think that is ultimately a job that needs to be done by someone. Maybe it's the school board, maybe it's someone else.
Setting the routes?
Yeah, setting the school bus routes. Just wanted to say, okay?
Do you want a correction in the minutes?
If you want to make a little addition.
I'll absolutely correct anything you want.
Well, it's not a matter of correction, it's just that I said that in the town of Wyndham, for instance, the school board sets the school bus routes.
I'll put it in.
Great, thank you, Peter. And then the other,
There was
yes.
one other thing, where it says Ms. Jers, it's actually Ms. Russ that did that suggestion.
Oh,
Okay, where is that?
It's
still the
in the middle
transportation one.
of Article 4.
Oh, okay.
Can you give me a page and a line?
Page 2 of 5, it's under Article 4, line
Third.
3.
So that should say Ms.
Page.
Russ,
Yeah.
page 2 of 5,
2 of 5, yeah.
under Article 4. And instead of Ms. Jers, it's Ms. Rush.
Third
Ms.
line.
Rush.
Thank you.
Russ, sorry. And then the only other thing I could see was toward the end, library was spelled wrong. But so under next meetings, on page 4 of 5, the LNG library instead of library.
All right.
No big deal, but,
So if you approve as corrected, then that's how
Yeah.
it'll show up in the book.
right.
Couple corrections
Yes.
here too.
Yes.
On page 2 of 5, language, it'd be the first, second, third paragraph, first sentence, language is twice, it's listed twice. Work on the language.
Okay.
And also, it does not show Ken McFadden here from Newfane, and yet he's quoted in the minutes.
Okay.
And I was not here, and I'm listed as in attendance.
Me too.
You too?
Yeah, I was here.
Okay. Peter, do you have all those?
Yes, I do.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, any other corrections, additions, deletions?
Just, yes, one
Emily?
other. Antje is put in here as one of the representatives, and she's actually not. She's a member of the public, right?
I guess she's our alternate.
Right, but since the law doesn't allow alternates, I know you were considering her an alternate, but since the law doesn't allow it, I don't think we should have two listed as Wyndham.
That's fine.
So
I'll make it
she
so.
would be good.
Great, thank you. Any other changes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries and the minutes are approved. You know, what I forgot to do is go around the room and introduce ourselves, so why don't we do that now? I'm Carolyn Partridge from the town of Wyndham.
Rod Sanderson, Townsend.
Chris Jers, Townsend?
Heidi Russ, Townsend.
John Everett, consultant.
Ken McFadden, Newfane.
Emily Long, Newfane.
Pam Tweedy, Jamaica.
Sherry Green, Brookline.
Patty Dixon, Jamaica.
Kelly Warner, Newfane.
Drew Hazelton, Jamaica.
Peter Barris, recorder.
Okay, members of the public?
Nancy Dyke, Wyndham.
Judy Dyke, Wyndham.
Anita Raphael, PR.
Great, thank you all. All right, our next item is connection with citizens, outreach efforts, and Anita, did you want to, or Patty?
Sure, go ahead, Patty. Oh, me? Okay, thank you. So what I'm looking for from you is some feedback on the little brochures that were handed out on voting day. I can report that the elementary committee had nothing but good reports about the use of their brochures, the distribution, and I'd like to ask you if you have any comments that you've heard or feedback, and I'd also like to ask you to redistribute any leftovers. So at wherever you can leave them, your food pantry, your post office, your schools, your libraries, just so that they get distributed and used up. These, again, as I said earlier, have a short shelf life, so we want them out there. So anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions?
In Brookline, we had them at Town Hall for voting. People put their ballots in the ballot box and they were offered brochures. Everybody took them. The feedback was good.
Good.
We also have some at the Riverbend Market. Erin, who is not with us tonight because she's ill, has been passing them out because she waits on customers. And I carry some in my car. Whenever I have an opportunity to pass out brochures, I do so. So the feedback has been good so
So
far.
far, so good. All right, any other towns want to weigh in?
I put them at the town clerk's office before Election Day, and quite frankly, I was not at the polling place on Election Day. I was standing out in front of the polls in Rockingham. And so I'm not quite sure. It was also a big day in Wyndham. There were some serious votes, and but I will check. I have a BCA meeting tomorrow, so I'll check what the status is on those brochures. They were put out on the counter, that I know.
Yeah, we got rid of a lot of them in Wardsboro. People were happy to pick them up and comment, so we really only had a few left to redistribute. So
Right.
if you're just aware of where they are, and if you think they're not being picked up, and just drop them off someplace where you think they might be, because we definitely want these out there. So the other thing coming up is, we have not posted any copies of the drafts that you've been working on of your report and the articles of agreement, only because it's been such a fluid document up to now. So the next big step is when you're ready to post those on the blog site, let me know, because that will be the next big moment to get out information as broadly as we can, that they're posted, that they're ready, that you can read them. I will tell you that the elementary committee has not quite finished, but they came up with something that I thought was solid enough to make available to the public, and there's been good feedback from people finding it, reading it. Rather than print 150 copies and try to get them everywhere, the committee decided to print a hard copy and put it in a binder and place it at each school. And then it's been advertised that if you want to read the hard copy, if you don't have a computer or whatever, you can just stop into your school. As far as the elementary committee goes, I've received several requests by email for people to just send me the PDF, and I'm more than happy to do that. That's not a big deal. Those requests come in to the email that I'm using through the Wyndham Central server to send people their very own copy if they want one. So that is the next big thing that we have to do, is look forward to when we can make something widely available and announce that. There'll be public service announcements and all that go with that. The next important deadline coming up is December 15th, because that is the deadline for the Wyndham News and Notes. So that will be something, if you want something in that, Again, we can either rely on Carolyn, who did a nice full-page thing, I don't know if y'all read it, it was exactly accurate to what the committee's been doing. We can do that, or I can write a public service announcement, or that would be a place to announce that the articles in the report are ready to read. But that's the next key critical deadline. The other thing is to start thinking about dates and formats for any public outreach sessions that you're going to have, where you invite everybody in to review it in person or ask questions or whatever. Those dates should be as widely publicized as possible and as far in advance as possible. So it's not too soon to start picking some of those dates so that you can maybe avoid conflicts with other events and meetings. So stand by to hear from the committee on those dates.
Anita, I'd just like to let you know, I think you know this, but if you want something to be dispersed to the Wyndham Community Organization listserv, or maybe even the, I'm not so sure about the Wyndham News and Notes, but I think that's part of it too. Ellen McDuffie is your
Right.
contact there, and she can put any information out that we have, you
Right.
know, besides that December 15th
Right, I
deadline.
did add her to the list for the public service announcements to distribute at her discretion. If she felt it was something she wanted to put out there, she certainly could. And I continue to post a Front Porch Forum, and I reach Jamaica. That's the only one I can post to, but I've been telling everybody else they can post it. Facebook, Jamaica, I guess, has been keeping up with their Facebook, so.
Anita, I just wanted to clarify one thing. You mentioned the elementary board several times, and we're still an elementary board,
Right.
committee.
But that's the name of their.
I know, I just think, as I spoke to people out in the community this past week, they're thinking that we're looking at lumping Leland and Gray with our committee, like Leland and Gray, and what we're doing is one big pot kind of thing. So I just wanted to clarify that we're still an elementary school
Right.
committee, because I'm afraid the public is gonna continue to think that.
Right, but for
But we're
some
not.
reason you're.
But
We're not, we're not, but that's what,
Right.
so when So she let's talk refers. about
what the distinction should be, because we're not an elementary committee, we're a pre-K-12 or K-12.
We are,
Pre-K-12 committee.
but isn't also the other
They are.
committee also? a
They
little-
are.
Okay,
So-
No.
so.
Hold it. No, the other committee is not a Leland Gray. They go up to sixth grade.
But they have responsibility up to 12.
Right, they have responsibility up to
Okay.
12,
So
but
they're
it's, they all
K-12, they
have
just
choice.
tuition for
Right.
7 through 12.
Right, I'm only referring to that because that's the name they
Okay.
call themselves.
And I think it's gonna get confusing for the public, that's all I'm saying, and so obviously it's for something maybe that we should discuss, but there's a lot of confusion about what, if we're the Leland and Gray committee, what that means for a budget kind of thing. So, I
All
just-
right, well, when I have access to Joe, maybe Patty and I could have a phone conference on that and come up with a standard paragraph that I include in all the public service announcements and repost, because I only can go by the official
No,
names.
I know that, and I'm just afraid anybody watching
no,
this
we'll
is gonna
fix
get
that.
really confused about that.
No,
So these are the Leland and Great Towns. We've said that over and over again.
That's on all the materials.
And the other group is trying to come up with a name. They're the Snow Valley right now, or
Okay,
they're trying to figure out what their name is.
okay.
Emily.
So I would suggest that maybe, I don't know when their next meeting is.
Tomorrow.
So I would suggest you ask them and tell them we've had this
Yeah.
question come up, and is there something they would like us to call them to make it distinctive from just not called just elementary? Let's let
I
them
would-
give
that
us
would- that would
feedback.
be
I think
great,
it's good
yeah.
feedback, and we should.
I'll put that on my notes to
Good.
bring that up tomorrow.
But to clarify, any budget that would be brought together by this larger board would be pre-K through 12.
And so Leland and Gray won't have their own budget anymore?
Correct.
That's correct.
I was mistaken about that then, okay,
I mean, as long as we're forming a unified union school district.
okay.
Right,
If we have
yeah.
if we have a MUUSD, then there's that.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to come up with a new name, I don't think, they have to.
Right, I think so too.
Anita, would you be willing to talk a little bit more about, they're posting the draft, but they're going beyond that and asking for feedback?
Yes, other committee, those guys.
Dover,
The
Wardboro-
Dover Wards
Dover.
Marlboro Committee.
Dover Ward.
They are soliciting feedback. Right on the blog site, it says, click here if you want to, write a comment. People have been writing in comments. We've had quite a few from Marlboro, lengthy comments. They have had people come to the meetings with copies of the draft, and they have listened very carefully to all the input. So there are ways for people to comment. We're also encouraging them, if they don't feel comfortable writing anything in an email, to just call their town's representative from the committee. And so a number of the people have gotten phone calls from people in their towns, bringing comments, and they've also been invited to come to the meeting, specifically to address things that they read in the articles that they want to ask questions about, even though it's not being advertised as one of the official public information sessions that will come after the final report and draft articles are completed. So they are very open in trying to get as much feedback as possible. And it's on everything. It's just a question of putting it on everything and saying, talk to us.
Okay, any questions for Anita? Anita, anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, just keep telling me stuff like that, things that come up or any bases that you think aren't being covered. I can jump right on it. But as I said, the next bigger hurdle is when you're ready to release the document for overall general public review. And as I have said before, we don't have to reach the whole world. We simply have to reach these communities, and that should be good enough. I'm still sending stuff to the Deerfield Valley News, as well as the Brattleboro Reformer. They both get everything. The Commons this week has a big article about both committees. I don't know if y'all saw that. Mike Faher did a few interviews with the members of the committee, and there were comments. So that was in, and it was also on Vermont Digger, the same article in which both communities were mentioned. So it's seeping out there. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Anita.
No, thank you.
Any other questions for Anita? Great, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is opportunities for students, and we were going to have a discussion about this. I know Drew was interested in talking about this, I am as well. John, could you clarify, because I don't really see on pages 6 and 7 of the report a lot about opportunities. So are those the correct pages?
It looks to me like when I sent it out as a PDF, it looks like they changed the places. So it looks like there are, looks like the bottom of page 7.
Okay. All right.
It's up there on the screen.
And they're actually on page 8, I think, aren't they?
And then it goes on
Is
to
that what
page
you're
8.
considering? These bullet points are what you're calling?
That's the discussion that the committee has had so far.
Okay.
Okay, so in preparation for this, I actually went through the 4-page document that you had sent out earlier, way earlier, and had some comments, but I wanted to open this up. Drew is the one that brought this up, and I wanted to give him an opportunity. Drew?
I think and the reason I brought it up is we spent a lot of time talking, and we have not spent a lot of time talking about the students. And I really think that whatever decision that we're making should be about the students that we're taking care of.
Can you speak up just a bit?
Yeah, so this really does need to be a student-focused discussion, and it has not been up until this point. In fact, if you read through what's here, there's really no opportunities listed for students. There's some information in the appendix from the interviews with principals that say there's some opportunities that exist, but those opportunities only exist if we change the structure. There's nothing listed that says this is going to create an opportunity for students. And I'd like to be very clear in our articles what we're doing for our students, so that we can be very clear with our taxpayers as to what we're trying to do for the students. And I don't feel that we've gotten to that point in this document where I can stand up and say, by moving forward with this proposal, we are going to do this for our kids. We've talked about briefly about expanded foreign language, which I don't find as being a legitimate argument, because that's nothing more than money. And if we want to create foreign language right now, all we have to do is pay for it. No different than if we want to create expanded foreign language under this new format, we'd have to pay for it. I just want to know, what is it that we're doing for the kids, so that we can explain to the public what it is we're doing for the kids.
Yeah, and I did go through that 4-page document, which is reflected here to a degree, and I found some of the language very sort of hard to nail down. And just wondered, maybe if it made sense to go through that language. John,
Is that the same
Pam.
as the attachment A in the report?
Yeah.
Is
I
that the same
believe,
document?
that is the case, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be on the same page.
The document I'm looking at came out on October 4th from John, and it's regarding governance reunification impact on student learning.
Yep, that's what this is, okay.
Okay. Emily?
I understand, I'm thinking about what Drew has been saying, and I understand the request for more specificity around how does this benefit our students. But I guess, John, I'd like to get a little feedback from you. I knew this was a challenge for us the last time when we had this conversation, and a lot of the reason was because until we formed a new district, all we could talk about were opportunities that we could foresee happening for our students. We couldn't say, this is what the board who will be formed at during the vote, if it passes, will make decisions about. You know, I mean, so if we're looking for, I guess if we're looking for concrete, this is what our students are going to gain, I'm not sure how to do that, and I'd love to hear your feedback from your experience, and I will just, if I could just say one more thing.
Go.
I was invited to attend the WSESU meeting last night. It was held in Dummerston about their study committee, and I haven't yet found any more specificity in theirs either. There's a lot of, the foreign language was one that was talked about, but I think it's a hard one to pin down specifically because we have no authority over what that new board will do. So I guess I'd just like to hear more about that.
When you say hard, it's, the next thing you said was more important, that you don't have the authority to do it. So it's not that it's hard, and if we just spent more time or thought
Right.
deeper, we could do it.
It's better way to put it.
It's just like people leaving the board, that when you replaced them and got on your board, they couldn't really say, no, you're gonna do this, this, and this, as they left. Because it's the new members and the new board that makes those decisions. So you have done one thing, though, that I think that really pops out, and you said, we're gonna have elementary school choice. I mean, that's much more than a lot of these union articles have said. A lot of them say, we're gonna look at it, we're gonna give them, in fact, I had given you some language to say the new board would come up with a policy for that, and you said, no, we want it stronger than that. So that's a really big thing that you've done as far as opportunities for students. The experience that I wrote about and the principals talked about where they see collaborative possibilities. Yeah, it's not something specific, but it's, and now I'll step out of my just do an editorial from my experience. If you've got a system that sets up, I'll go back to my teaching experience. So I was a combination 4th, 5th, 6th teacher in Randolph Elementary School, East Randolph Elementary School. The Randolph system consisted of 3 elementary schools, all under one board. And our science program was done we developed kits and units, and they traveled from school to school. And that was done because we really were organized around a central decision-making body, the one school board. That's the kind of thing that can happen, but it's a possibility, and you can't direct the new board to do something like that. But that is some of the kind of thinking that the principals talked about as far as teachers sharing units. And that sort of thing. I don't know, I could go on and on like that, but that's the stuff I wrote about, so.
Patty?
I think some of the things that are in these pages, they don't directly impact the students, but the trickle down will impact the students positively. And the one thing I think is the biggie is that the most prominent leader of our education system here in our supervisory union his time will be freed up from traveling to board meetings and stuff like that to actually lead. And I think that's a huge important fact, and I think that will, I can't imagine that would not end up being a positive thing for students in the end. It's a trickle down, but it just makes sense to me when you've got a central office that's trying to deal with all these boards, all their materials, all their different budgets, it just makes sense that when they have more time to actually do their work.
So Antje, I'm gonna channel Antje. She can't be here because of the timing. But she's been saying for years, why is the superintendent attending all of our meetings? I mean, it's nice to have him there, especially having Bill there, it's great. But really, occasionally we have questions for him, but he could be Skyped in. He could, if there are questions for him, we could ask them and get follow-up. I think under the current structure, I'm just pushing back and, we're having a discussion here. I think that his time could be freed up under the current structure, just by not having all the travel time, all the meetings to go to, and if we have questions, we can consult. So Emily's hand was up, then Ken.
No, I don't mind.
No, great.
Well, I was just gonna suggest that I think there's an awful lot in this appendix. I tend to agree with you, Carolyn, on that one. I'm not as concerned about, although I recognize having a superintendent focused more on the educational opportunities that are there in the work that they do. That's not a key for me. It's never been a key for me, is freeing up their time. But this attachment A about student learning opportunities, if we could go through that here together and talk about, I think there's a ton of stuff in here. Again, it doesn't feel like it's something we can actually say, this is what will happen, because I've never felt we had the authority to do that, but I think there's so much, I get excited when I read this, because I do think that there are possibilities here to really improve student learning. There's many opportunities to do that, and I'd love to have that conversation. And it isn't just about curriculum, including, it's not just about whether we're gonna have more foreign language, as you stated. That it's not only that. There's a lot of other things that are in this document that I think are good.
So you know what, if we have time, I'm happy to have that discussion, because I spent quite a bit of time today marking it up, and, I'll be glad, if we want to have that conversation, I'll be glad to have it. Ken, then Patty.
We've already brought this up at past meetings, even with our past superintendent, you don't have to be at every meeting. And if there's some meetings that you really don't even need the superintendent at, other than, just for him to be where he's not needed, to be honest. There's other times where there is things that are brought up in a meeting that it's essential that he's there. And usually, you have a agenda, and you usually know beforehand, anything that you can make a decision on, beforehand, because it's already written up on your agenda, whether or not the superintendent actually needs to be there. And we also discussed having more than one board meeting on one night, so that would, could also free up his night. So that's one point there on that. But to go back to the what are the kids gonna get out of it, and we can't do anything now because we're not that next board. Okay, well, we are all board members now in the same district. We have principals that all go to ATM meetings that collaborate and discuss what they're doing in their schools, and if they do have things, it's up to them to send it around. Even if we were one joint board, I don't know if you remember years back, we had direct instruction is not, and whether it's one big board or a bunch of little boards, direct instruction is not under the board's privy. We cannot tell our administrators how to administrate education.
okay? We can make suggestions, but we'd really like to see a program with this in it, but it's up to the principal, the superintendent, and the staff to implement any program.
I would disagree.
Well,
That's,
I don't know, you were at the same training as me, that was the one that.
no, you're talking about, there's a difference between, I'm not get
Well,
into this,
well,
but.
all right, go ahead, no, please.
Well, all I'm saying is, I agree with, that we don't specify how our vision and our goals are implemented in the schools, because we don't actually operate at that detail level. But we do absolutely, through policy and through the work we do, as a board, direct what the education system needs to provide for our students and what our expectations are for the outcomes. We are absolutely responsible for everything, in my mind, that you just said. We just don't say how you get there. Not only do we state what we want and what our communities expect for the education for our kids, but we need to, as a board, hold our administration accountable to make sure that that happens. So I think there's a...
I would encourage you to try to come back to the agenda, because if you're going down a hole about, kind of a rabbit hole about governance,
Yeah.
roles of boards, you're not gonna get the discussion that you wanted to have.
Right, well,
Correct.
no, it's just basically the reality is, if change can happen under one board, it can still happen under our current structure. We've had collaboration between the different schools before. And we still do have some going on, maybe not to the extent that everybody thinks is gonna happen when a new board comes in, but we don't know what the new board's gonna do. For all we know, they're all gonna say, oh, everything's fine, yeah, just leave it. We don't know.
And I do think you already have that in your report, that kind of statement.
Right, so in other words, you cannot say that there are any opportunities that can happen. Or, because if there's opportunities out there, we should be seeking them out now, which I think we have. So, and as far as, getting a unified curriculum, I thought that's why we went to the Common Core. We've been through all this stuff, right? This school is more, this town has kids that are more ready for 7th grade science than this town is. And sometimes it's just the luck of the draw of the kids that happen to be graduating that year, to be totally honest with you, so.
So,
Yeah.
just for clarification, the Common Core isn't a curriculum, it's standards.
No, well, it's the
So,
standards that they base
right.
their curriculum on at ATM, so that
Right,
they're
but
all.
it's how you teach, you're teaching for those standards, but it's not a curriculum, it's different.
So you could use everybody could be using.
Everybody can use different
the curriculum
curriculum to
get
read
that.
those standards.
And we can have that discussion too. Everybody can have the same exact textbook, but if you don't have the same exact teacher and the same exact students, you're not gonna have the same exact outcome. There's too many variables.
So, do we want to spend a few minutes going through this piece? Does everyone
Great
have it
idea.
in front of them?
It's up there.
Or
Okay,
start from the
mine
beginning.
starts with during the last several weeks. So, okay, great. So, I'll just kick it off here. In the third paragraph, on page 1.
It's 22 in the
It's
new
22.
version.
Oh,
Page 22 on the document.
Previous.
It's okay, it's on, the document that came with our agenda, it's on page 22.
okay, thanks. And John, this is basically the same language that's gone out before.
Yes, this document hasn't changed. This is
Great.
my memo to the committee.
So, a third paragraph, and I'm just gonna kick this off and, feel free to, go backwards, forwards, whatever you'd like to do, but the language is: a unified governance system would provide the structure or platform for collaborative and cooperative actions that would add strength, vitality, and sustainability to the existing school programs. That doesn't really mean much to me. I don't think that somehow changing this governance system is gonna make that happen. where it couldn't happen already.
And that's the next sentence.
That's the, yeah.
So it is not that most of these actions require a unified governance system, yeah. It is just that the current governance system presents many barriers that require substantial efforts to overcome. So I'd like to know, and you list some barriers here, but I'm wondering if those barriers can't be removed without having a governance change.
I think some of the things that each district has, they sort of hold to themselves. I mean, Jamaica has things, Townsend has things, Newburgh has things, and they're considered their own property, you know, and to share them with other districts, although, we can do that, I think there's an aspect of, it's difficult to do under the current system. If it gets combined under one system, one district, it becomes shared property. Much to the point where we were talking about units for science. There are other things out there as well, but it becomes shared property that we can collaborate with and everybody can use, and we don't have to get 6 or 7, 5 or 6 different things of the same item, and just everybody has their own. We can actually share it and pass it on. I think there are other things as well that allow us to do that. As an example, I mean, you talked about maintenance staff and doing repairs. I think that was discussed, or at least that was something I thought about. Staff can go from one school to the next school. It could be Leland and Gray staff coming to Newbrook to work on some steps, work on different areas. That collaboration doesn't take place right now because of budgetary constraints. So I think there is those are barriers that are very difficult to get over. I don't think we would get over them unless we consolidate.
So I'll just respond that we have, in Wyndham, we have the school program, this farm school. And I know that Bill's talking to Lee Marinoff so that this can be spread to other schools as well. So I think there are opportunities to share some of the things we do. There are other things like, who has the full-time pre-K? Is that Townsend? Hey, that'd be great,
But right now, we have to charge somebody who's not from Townsend if they want to come full-time, on top of the money that's already getting paid from the town. Somebody who's got to
Right.
privately pay a lot of money because it's a tuition level
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Right.
that's big. I mean, when we're individual entities, our taxpayers are expecting us to look out for our school and our school only. They don't want to see us helping Newfane or Wyndham because their tax dollars raise the money to buy or to pay for what's ever within our school. If we all become one budget, there's one big pot, there's no argument for that anymore. Our PE teacher travels to different schools,
Yep.
and she buys equipment at each school. I know she does use some of it, and will take it to get a unit done to take it to another school, but if a principal puts their foot down, or a board member puts their foot down, technically it's the property of the Townsend school, not to be used somewhere else. So I do think taxpayers really, at this point, look at the taxes raised that pays for things in the Townsend school are Townsend's exclusive use. And it would be nice to not have that as a restraint anymore.
Patty?
Sorry, Patty.
And I think short of having an all-board meeting with 30 or how many people are on all the boards all together to share the information of what we're all doing, and/or having presentations multiple times by the principals, which was very informative, but you can really only expect people to go to so many meetings when they're serving on a board, and then it just gets it's overwhelming. I just think with one board, you are sharing the information and coming up with the information, and your principals are talking to one board, and it's efficient. It's an efficient use of public participants' time.
Any other comments? Nancy?
Carolyn, may I interject something here?
Sure.
Just in my experience in the supervisory union, in the almost 14 years that we've been here, I've heard people talk about again and again curriculum alignment. And where that's really a problem is between 6th grade and 7th grade. And the issue is that the issue never gets solved. People talk about, yes, we can decide what the curriculum should be, what kids should know and be able to do by that time, and yet, it hasn't happened yet. It's still a problem in the years that I've been here, and I would think that one governance would be able to really go a long ways at solving that disconnect. All of the 6th graders coming into 7th grade at different places.
Mhm.
Yes, I suppose it could be solved without a governance change, but the reality is, in the 14 years that I've been around, it hasn't been solved. So,
Mhm.
Can I say just one other thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Sort of to Drew directly, I think one strength, maybe one, I think this would be an advantage, is, so right now when we have board meetings and they're all different, the principal attends the board meeting with that specific board. With the unified district and with the board, I would assume that all principals from all the different schools would attend that one board meeting. The one thing that I feel that does not happen is if Jamaica is planning something to have, that their kids participate in, they don't call around to the other schools to see if they want to participate or to include them. Townsend has a circus residency that's fantastic, but the other schools don't necessarily know about it and don't participate in it because we are not finding the time to make calls to everybody. So I think an advantage to students would be all those principals attending a board meeting and discussing what they're doing in the next month in their own school may actually open up a discussion to say, hey, we're having a circus residency. Maybe we could somehow get the other schools that are interested in coming and participating in that in Townsend. How could we make this work for other schools that might be interested in it? I don't think that happens, because we're so busy on dealing with our own individual school and having enough meetings, that there's not the reach out that there could be potentially at one particular meeting. So that's just a thought.
Why can't these things that each individual school has be brought up at an ATM meeting when all the principals are all sitting down at the
Because they
same
have
table?
a huge agenda that they're trying to get through, and I don't think they're thinking about the fact that we're going to the opera next month to share with everybody else. I think they have already too many things that they're discussing. It wouldn't even occur to them to make it, okay, everybody, let's, do this roundtable forum about what you're doing in your school next month. I think Bill's got his agenda, and that's not the appropriate place to bring it up.
Well, if you feel it's really that important, even without rebuilding a whole structure for this to happen, you could have it happen. All you have to do is ask for 5 more minutes added to the agenda.
I have a feeling it would take longer than 5 minutes. I think I would like to see it have an opportunity to have a bigger discussion than 5 minutes, and I think it's something, we could talk to Bill about it, but I think on a regular basis, it probably would not happen because they would have no time to deal with that.
Have you asked your principal if they ever discuss any of that stuff?
I actually talk to my principal a lot after an ATM meeting. I hear a lot of the stuff, and it is way beyond that kind of stuff. It's
But
more of the educational pieces, not the extra curricular that we're bringing into our schools.
because as a board member, I sit down with my principal once a week. I pop in and say, what's going on, anything new? And they'll say, oh, well, this is going on up in Jamaica, or this is going on in Townsend. And it lets me know what's going on in all the elementary schools. So, they talk, they do, they talk.
I don't think to the extent that,
To get them to collaborate, I don't know, but they talk.
Well, I think that this is potentially an opportunity, because I remember years ago, a music, I don't know exactly what it was, but Ron Kelly was part of it. He had this huge kalimba, maybe there's another word for it, huge xylophone, basically, all made with buckets and what have you. Wyndham went down to came down to Townsend to participate in
There
it.
was long ago that did happen, but I think there's not as much time anymore to deal with those kind of things. There's no communication that I see, and I work in a school, between schools about what's going on. There's none.
Well, how about some social media here, you know, or communication, but it doesn't even have to be at the ATM meeting.
Website, school website.
You know, it can be conversations on, you know, like we have this, you know, the Wyndham Central organization, a website, which by the way, I'm not part of, but, you know, I do get my messages you know, on other accounts, but, you know, that could be something that teachers could do, principals could do to share that information.
I agree. I have found that the days are very full between 7 and 5 in a school building, and that doesn't allow for a lot of time to go pursuing that outside of what's happening in our school right at every moment.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm sure it could be done. I'm just saying that one large board meeting would allow for it without having somebody to reach outside, which I just don't see it happening anymore.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know if this was a big, you know,
Patty?
I think we have an elephant in the room here, and we're kind of getting into trying to figure out problems that we have in this group, and we have no power to do that. And it seems like there are some people in this group that really don't want this to happen. So are we going to go forward with this in a positive way, or are we going to put roadblocks up all the time? And I think we really need to figure that out, because we're all spending a lot of time and energy, and we're not even gonna finish by 7 getting to the drafts with the discussion about how we're gonna solve the communication issue in our schools without doing this. I think we're getting way off topic.
Well, I think that, I don't know that we're off topic. I think that, you know, we were going to have a conversation about the kids and opportunity for children. And I think that having gone through the red process, and not everybody in the room did do that, you know, we've seen some of this stuff before, and I'm not trying to color, you know, our activity, but I also know that this will be a huge change. If this were to move forward and this were put in place, this is gonna make a huge change for many of our towns, maybe not so much for Townsend, because, you know, I would imagine that these board meetings would be held right here. And, I mean, it's, you know, it's hard to say, but it makes sense that they'd be here. I'm concerned about parental involvement. I'm concerned about a loss of control. You know, frankly, it would make life much easier to have somebody else be able to, you know, I don't even know if there'd be a presentation at town meeting, you know? The budget would come up, it would be one large budget with all of the elementary schools and the high school all
But Patty,
lobbed together.
Sorry about that. Sorry, Carolyn, I just wanna say though, if we don't do this, it could still change. I mean,
What
if
could
we
still
don't
change?
move forward with what we've been discussing for these last month or two. Okay, so we don't do anything because we've decided, the majority of us don't think it's a good idea because of losing some control. Isn't it still a strong possibility that the state is gonna enforce us to do this anyways?
Well, I would say that if, you know, I've said all along that you know, for years, that Wyndham Central is already doing much of what was desired in terms of, you know, consolidation. You know, hiring teachers that we share, you know, consolidating special ed. I'm not trying, this is important, and if we
It
don't
is.
have the conversation.
But no, but that wasn't what I just put on the table or asked was, isn't there a strong possibility we can sit here and say this is not gonna benefit the students, we shouldn't move forward with this, but in the end, someone's gonna force us into what we don't want anyways.
Well, I'm not convinced that there aren't going to be changes made to Act 46 this coming year. I'm not convinced that there isn't gonna be increased flexibility. I don't know what Phil Scott's gonna do, you know, in terms of his, you know.
No, it's
Maybe
just-
nothing, I mean, but I'm concerned because it's a huge change. And we really need to go into it with our eyes wide open about what you potentially get and what you potentially give up.
I agree, but I thought our committee was gonna try to pull something together to the best of our ability and let the townspeople make a decision about whether they wanted to move forward with this. And I feel like we're not getting that far. I mean, we're never gonna have something to present to the townspeople because we can't agree as a group, as a committee, and I feel like it's a waste of my time, and I feel like, you know, I feel like the people should have a chance to see what we've put together and have a chance for discussion, but maybe we don't allow that to happen, I guess.
I'm not saying that we don't move forward. I'm just saying we should know what we're getting into, you know? And I also, I'm gonna be really candid with you, I think this whole process has been really rushed.
It has been,
I realize we're
absolutely.
trying to meet some kind of timeline, but, you know, when you rush something through, and I've learned this from experience, you get unintended consequences. And, you know, once it happens,
There's no turning back,
there's
absolutely.
no turning back.
But if we don't rush through this and the state decides to mandate something, there's no turning back then either.
Well,
And we've had no control over it.
Drew and then Patty.
I don't think this discussion is a waste of our time. And the reason why I asked for the discussion about kids is because there's nothing in the article about kids. We opened up this part of our evening tonight saying that we have seen no concrete benefit for children. However, we believe that school choice and pre-K are going to be a benefit for children. If that's what we found, then that's what we should write in the report in black and white for the public to see. At least they can then see that we addressed the issue, we discussed it, we didn't see a concrete benefit, but we believe this to be a benefit. Right now, our report doesn't say anything about kids. We're gonna stand up in front of the towns, we're gonna give them, it does not, this is not our report.
Well, it's
This is
part of
not-
our report.
This is the
right?
consultants.
I mean, this is part of our report, though.
But it's not from us. There's no
Yeah, it is.
discussion from us. The articles are from us. The language from the articles are from us. This is from the consultant.
But it's part of the report.
I
So,
understand.
So if you don't feel ownership over that, I mean, I've had plenty of opportunities
let's-
to make changes to that, and I think that was what we were going to do, was go through it
Then
tonight.
let's put an article in that says just what the consultant told us. We have seen no concrete student opportunities, but we believe that by adding school choice and including pre-K, that we're gonna create opportunities for kids. And we'll call it a day. But right now, we have nothing in our report, in my opinion. We have no articles to say anything about student education.
So I'm gonna say Patty and then Emily.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's okay. My thing's long gone. Yeah. That's
Okay,
So I just
Emily?
wanna, I'd like to
Okay.
have a step back and talk about what exactly our report is and what the articles are, because the articles are pretty, I think I'm right, that the articles are pretty specific about what we have to include in the articles. But what we submit are not just the articles, the full report that we
The whole thing.
submit is ours. And I recognize what you're saying, that was written, but that wasn't written, it was written by our consultant, but it was based on feedback from what we've said and what the principals have said and all that. And so I think it's really important that we know that if we made some decision at some point here to send these forward, we own that. Those are our words, not his.
Well, then let's put it right at the front.
But,
Let's put it at the beginning. Let's put a paragraph in the beginning that says, we have looked at this.
But my question is to ask John how a report, I think it's pretty specific about how it's supposed to be formulated, how this document is supposed to be put together. I'm seeing others and they look similar to this.
They're similar. They're things that are required.
That's what I wanna know.
Yeah, those things, and I'm making sure you have those required things in.
Are they part of the articles?
Yeah, yeah. And then there are other things that committees just want to put in.
Okay.
And the language that says whatever they want to say.
Okay.
So
And that can be in the report, or it can be in an article. It's
Okay.
Two
really
quick
up to the
things.
committee.
Okay.
Ken and then Brooke.
One is, as far as doing things together to save opportunities. This year, I believe we have coordinated all the key wading trips, or most of the key wading trips, to all go at one time, one bus, all that stuff. So it's a cost savings, and then all the kids get to know each other prior to coming up here in a different atmosphere. That's one thing for that. So we are doing it. Teachers, the principals are talking. just to, obviously not to the extent that some people would desire. The other thing is, I agree with Drew. I feel that, you know, and actually pretty much what Drew said. This board has can come up with no concrete improvements in education, although the possibility of school choice at elementary school level and
Pre-K.
pre-K opportunities expanded, okay, should be written in there. Because everyone's ducking the question of, no one's gonna say, well, because everyone's gonna fall back on, we can't say what the new board's gonna do, which we can't. You know, I can't tell you what my board's gonna do next year, because I don't know who's gonna be on. But I agree with Drew that something should be put in there saying that this committee has found no concrete improvements for students other than the possibilities of pre-K and school choice.
I feel badly that I haven't been able to communicate the opportunities that your principals talked about and that I've seen. I mean, if you're for it or against it, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I really tried to put forward the opportunities that were there. I mean, I think about it for my kid. I would want my kid to have the kind of possibilities that the principals talked about. So, I keep sort of hearing that you've not found anything, and I feel badly about that because I think the principals communicated that, and I tried to communicate it to you. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about that.
Well, give us a couple of examples, because apparently
Right
everybody's
here,
missing
Ken.
it.
Right here. 1, 2, 3, let's go through those.
Okay,
Oh,
let's,
no,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
There's
So-
other people who are ready to
So
speak.
I've got Bud, and then I've got Pam, and then I've got Anita.
And then we'll go through those, absolutely.
Great.
So I just wanted to note, Drew, there's on page 5, I guess.
Yes, page 5.
There is a point here that talks about student learning opportunities. I think in that area, we can start talking about adding in some bullet items to cover some of those needs. And it's actually, what do we got, 6 or 7 pages? No, I'm exaggerating. There's about 4 pages here on student opportunities. Maybe it might already be in there.
And it already references this attachment A with all of the principals and
Yeah.
the consultants and our feedback kind of summarized. And nothing's concrete. I feel like nothing says this is going to happen. It's clear that it's speculation based on what we've seen and what we think could happen and the potential.
I'd like there to be some concrete stuff, but a piece of this is a leap of faith. You know, we as a board, or as a committee, you know, if we move this forward and it actually turns into one district, there is the items we've talked about, but there's also a leap of faith that the principals, the future board, the superintendent get together and look for more opportunities. Ones that we didn't devise, something that's totally different 10 years from now that comes up. There's a leap of faith that we have to trust that this is gonna work and it will have good opportunities for the students.
Anita.
Just as a outside listener, not so much related to PR, but I think that it would be helpful to think that this document is simply a tool to create a new unified board. And the new unified board, if given the opportunity, will find creative possibilities just because of the fact that they exist. They will then have the inspiration, the leeway, the freedom, the necessity, the functionality, if you will, to sit down together and say, okay, this is great, now let's think of 10 things we can do that we couldn't do before. And I don't think you can itemize those now. I don't think you can bulletize those now. I think that dynamic happens when that group sits down with its 5 principals, with its core of parents who are going to participate, and somebody says, why don't we all do a school play with 5 schools, and then the wheel starts turning. I don't think you can write that now. And I think to put a negative in the report, to say there are no, is hard, because you all have worked hard, and you all have talked about a lot of stuff. You just didn't quite get in writing. I've heard it, I've read it in the minutes. So that, I think, should be the objective, is to not start with the negative, but to say we envision that. And if it takes writing a little vision statement, then try that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Do we want to continue this conversation, or do we want to try and get through some of the other items on the agenda? I'm open to discussion. Emily?
I mean, I will just tell you that someone mentioned barriers. I can't remember which, maybe it was you, somebody mentioned barriers. And I've been, in the 20 some odd years I've been here, I've been very frustrated around the barriers. And when I read, you know, we got pointed to page 5. And when I read that, and when I've gone through several times through the 4-page attachment A, on the student learning opportunities, I feel excited. I will just say, I feel excited about the possibilities. I also recognize that we're not able to say specifically what the steps will be, but I do recognize that there will be opportunities for us to grow. That's what I want. I want our communities to be able to have schools that are growing, expanding, not just in enrollment, but in programs and opportunities. So I get that from these reports, and this is just my personal opinion. So I don't, if this committee doesn't get that from this report, and I don't mean just the articles, because the articles aren't the only thing to me, the whole thing is a report for me, then we need to make a decision about whether if we're not getting it, then we've got to find a way to either get it or to walk away from this.
Drew?
So I get out on the table. I'm not against the report. I'm not against this process. I'm going to go back and I'm going to stand in front of a whole bunch of Jamaica taxpayers. They're going to ask me about student opportunities for the kids. What can I show them in this document? Give me something I can point to and say, on page, here are the opportunities. It is not here. There are vague statements, but there is nothing, as you said, concrete for me to point to. When we're talking about making a change of this size, I would love to be able to look at them and say, the reason we should do this is because it's going to benefit our kids. Not the reason we are going to do this is because if we don't, they're going to do it to us. Does that make sense? I'm just looking for something I can explain to the public. And right now, the only thing I can hear is the reason we should do this and do this now is so that we do it before they do it to us. There isn't anything here that says, if you see it, then show me. I would be glad to see it. Where? Show me the page where I can point to it. I can stand on a podium and I can read it.
23, is I think
23.
20, I haven't gone there yet. I mean, that was where I pointed us to in the first place.
I've read this forward and backwards. I don't see it.
In the attachment. I recognize you're looking for concrete.
I need something to show the public. I'm at a podium right now answering this question.
Every school will have 2 hours a week of instrumental music.
Can't do
Boom.
that.
You
It'll
can't
never
do it,
happen.
right? So if you
You're
can't do
looking
it,
for that, it won't.
but we can, but see, this is the thing that gets me, is, you know, I just want to do a quick hand poll after I make one quick statement. And it's okay to put in all the fluff of what might happen, okay, to make it look good. This might happen if we do this. This could be happening now with separate districts. I'm just pointing that out, okay? Now, here's my quick straw poll. Can I have a show of hands of anybody that think Act 46 was pretty much jammed down your throat, that yes, you all have to consolidate or you're gonna get thrown into a pile? Is there anybody here that feels that way other than me? Put your hand up. Don't be shy. If you feel that way, just say so.
I think that there is an element to that.
Yeah, there's a piece of it, absolutely.
I also
That's
think
not
there was a
the whole thing.
reason why we're having this conversation.
Okay.
You know, and I think that there are districts, and the reason I voted for Act 46 is because there are districts in this state that needed to have this conversation. I'm not convinced we're one of them. I'm just putting it out there. because we do a lot of, I mean, I had an hour and a half conversation with Rebecca Holcomb a few years ago, and you know, I said, hey, and she said to me at the time, I'm not talking about consolidating small schools, small elementary schools. She said, I'm more concerned about high schools that do not offer enough. And you know, I saw that, I agree with that. But now we're sort of talking about it in terms of governance and, you know, and what potentially I see can be lost as opposed to what can be gained. And I have concerns about that. And I also am the representative from the smallest school at the top of a hill, you know, which, you know, this board could close, could vote to close.
Not this board.
No, we couldn't. Even the next board, we put in there that it couldn't happen.
Well, I understand, I was having a conversation with Allison Eastman, one of our colleagues, who was the chair of the Slate Valley Study Committee, and which failed, well, it's failed in Orwell anyway. And she said, Carolyn, you gotta have language in there, as a special ballot language that says that only a town can close its
We do.
school.
We have it in there. It's in the
Okay,
article.
so getting back to Drew's question, can we put a statement like that in here? Or is anybody willing to put that statement in, or no?
What statement?
That the only learning opportunities that we can foresee at this time are?
Can I,
So the answer is no. Can we move on then?
Yep.
can we read these one by one? Because I feel like the things that we said, like the pre-K and the school choice, are covered in these. The opportunities that the kids will get out of those things are covered in these statements, starting on page 23.
And we just need to tweak them out
Yeah.
of the statements. And maybe take some of the fluff out,
So
you know, make them a little bit more
So maybe
clear.
Chris wants to start. I have one question though. I'm
Yep.
just curious,
Heidi.
Drew, do you not feel like that's enough? Do you feel like you need more to be able to tell more concrete than saying, you know what, this is gonna open up opportunities for our kids to go to wherever works geographically or culturally for them, and our kids will have an opportunity, maybe not Jamaica because they have full-time pre-K, but kids around the district have the opportunity to get a full-time pre-K if they choose. Do you feel like that's not enough?
I don't think that I necessarily need more information than that, and that's the reason why I put forward the idea of having elementary school choice. I just want to make sure that I have a message and I have an answer to the question as to why this is a good idea. And again, I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but I don't want to stand in front of the taxpayers and say this is a good idea only because if we don't do it, something bad's going to happen. I want to be able to point to something that says, and this, if you think it's here in the language, great. I don't read it that way. Let's clean it up so that I can understand it.
I feel like 1 through 3 cover the choice
It does.
aspect and how that's gonna benefit students.
Can we make it more succinct so that it's clear to the readers? Maybe that's the piece of it.
Do
but
we
it's
need like a
just-
heading?
A heading
Choice
or
will provide
something.
these opportunities.
Right,
Boom, boom,
something
boom,
like
boom.
that, maybe.
Something like
Do you know what I mean? So that it's pretty.
And then somebody can see just from that little bold heading what that 2 sentences is about. I mean, the sentences are very well written, it's just, it's exactly what Drew said, you're not gonna read that whole thing. You need your elevator with a message.
I truly think that Jamaica folks, and probably all of our town folks, they're people just like us. We are not necessarily educational professionals or anything like that, but we come to this with some common sense, and when we read things, I don't think it's quite a stretch to assume that if this happens, this might be an outcome that's hoped for. I don't really think that we can't do that, number one, give specific things about that. We've done a lot of specifics about the money. I think that's gonna be a biggie. But the outcomes for the students, I think, I have faith in our town people because they're like me. I'm just a Jamaica citizen. And I think they'll understand the possibilities and they'll make up their minds. And my understanding is that we're gonna vote on these. If you don't like them, you can say no. If you do like them, you can say yes. And then from there, am I right about that process? And then from there, it goes to the town. And if we do our job well in presenting them in an unbiased way, I don't think we should be convincing our towns necessarily that we want them to read this. And if they have questions, let us know what your questions are, but we need to be unbiased, I think, in our presentation of this, and let them make their own decision. And they'll either vote for it or they won't.
Any other comments? Do you wanna go through
I
these?
think these number things would be great to go through, because I think they speak specifically to students.
Okay, so students would have a common language of instruction, curriculum expectations, assessments, and approaches. As they transition between elementary schools or from elementary schools to secondary schools, students start the experience on the same footing as other students. The new school uses the same instructional language with familiar approaches. My comment was, this should happen already.
But it's
A lot
not.
of things.
It should though. I agree with Nancy. We've been talking about curriculum alignment for years. So,
I've never really.
So I thought what we were gonna do was pull out things so that it's more succinct, not say that it's happening or not happening, just so that we can show it.
I'm
So
saying
that
it
it's a little
should
bit-
have.
Or that it should, right.
Or maybe
But
come
how
up
do-
with a heading that would belong under, if you wanted to.
Just offer
if we
a
needed
process
to.
suggestion. Back up in the report, there's a place where the things that you've heard, you're taking special note of. And so you don't have to worry about the format. The things you want to pull out, I can put right up in there under what you noted. So, yeah, like so far I've taken notes that you want something to say about elementary choice, and you wanted some bullets under that,
You mean-
pre-K, you want some bullets.
That's,
I think you just made Drew happy.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
And then
So
possibilities.
then you could do
Can you
a
list
few
the one,
bullets.
John?
Yeah, yeah.
I can do that for you, I can pull out, but I just need to hear what stands out for you. And that's what's in there now, is what stood out for you last time we did this discussion.
All these numbered ones stand out.
Well, number 2 of this definitely covers some school choice stuff.
Yep, children should be allowed to attend different schools in cases where the change would make a significant difference in the ability of the system to meet specific needs.
Could be.
And so you change that to be families making that decision.
Okay, so where is the language change gonna be?
There's not gonna be language change in what you're reading, because that's my memo to you. But in the document, I'll make it say that you're allowing families to choose where they wanna go.
Yeah.
Okay. The current financial structure promotes keeping children in the town school no matter the circumstances. One recent example is the unfortunate separating of siblings into 2 schools because of the living situation of the parents. Okay, is everybody okay with that language? All right. Number 3, children could attend different schools when there is a need to balance class sizes in a particular group. Recently, there was an abundance of students in one grade level in one school, while there were too few students in the same grade level at another school.
But we said children can attend other schools based on choice, not necessarily just to figure out
Sorry,
class size.
this is just what your
Right.
principals talked about.
Right.
Okay. All right, that
But
might
that's not a
not.
benefit for the
I don't-
students.
I-
Moving,
I'm
moving a
confused about that
student
in there.
because a 6th grade is, or, you know, to have them move to away from all their friends is not gonna help their education, because now they're gonna have to
I
get to
don't-
know.
It was a
When we-
family choice though,
But-
wasn't it?
But-
Right, it was a
That wasn't on
family
the table
choice.
for the principals.
Right,
Yeah.
it was a family choice, it wasn't us saying you have to move.
And that's what you said, family choice.
Right.
So what is that going to be then, to be clear?
This is gonna be a bullet that,
This won't
It's
even
staying.
appear because
It's a common
you've gone
Yeah.
beyond that, you've
Right.
said something different.
Okay, so is that
Well,
gonna
to
be,
the
I heard a
article.
suggestion that we take that out of there.
This is
not gonna
my
be a
memo
fix.
to you.
Yeah.
So,
So-
This isn't
in
perfect,
the,
that's fine.
in the report, earlier in the report, there's gonna be a bunch of bullets
Mhm.
that, less than 1 page probably.
Mhm.
So that
Quickly
we're gonna
listen.
summarize these guys, and
The ones that make it, you
Yep.
think make a difference.
if they wanna go look at it and read a little bit more later, they can go back here and do so.
Okay, should we go on to 4?
Yes.
Yes.
Administrators could take advantage of the flexibility of resource assignment in a unified system, allowing the deployment of teachers and resources to meet student needs and changes in enrollment. Title I funds to support student learning could be managed in a more coherent manner combining enough resources to make a focused difference. Currently, the funds are divided into 43 different staff segments.
I think that's a fantastic opportunity.
Flexibility of
Any
resources.
comments about
For
that?
kids.
It's a good one.
I think like flexibility of resources, not
Right.
just teachers, but maintenance, whatever that, however you want to word that.
And
Okay.
it's matching funds with need more effectively and efficiently in my mind.
Can you
Because of
speak
the-
up a little?
I'm
Ellen?
sorry.
Yeah.
It's matching the funds with the student need, because of the flexibility of the resource assignment. That seems to me a concrete, benefit. I can see students really benefiting from that.
Mhm. Okay, any other comments about number 4? Number 5, teachers would continue to move together toward preparing children to succeed at the next level at Leland and Gray. Standardized math instruction across elementary schools has led to anticipation of a higher level of grade 8 math, pre-algebra, and the cohort of elementary students impacted by the standardized curriculum and professional development enters Leland and Gray. And my note to that was, this should happen now.
And can't we
Yeah.
say that it's
But
continued
the other
improvement?
thing is
I mean,
it's
Yeah.
This
starting-
says it is happening.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
so
say,
just
this
say it's
is
continued,
happening now.
but say it's continued improvement. I mean,
Yep.
it's,
Yep.
that's the benefit. It'll
But
So
the
what
whole
would your
sentence
language be,
starts
Brad?
with teachers would
Um,
continue to move together.
Yeah.
Children would be better prepared to succeed because of, in other words, if you start with the children, they will be the beneficiaries because of the way the teachers move together. So you could put the children up front, because it will happen.
And it's been a challenge for us.
Absolutely.
As anybody sitting here on the Leland and Gray board knows, it's been a challenge for us for many years because students come to us at many different levels of, especially around math and
So,
science.
yeah, so if you just say children would be better prepared to succeed at the next level at Leland and Gray because the teachers will work together. Put the children up there.
Okay, so John, do you have that kind of change? Yep, okay. Should we go on to 6? I will point out that we have about 35 minutes left to run through the rest of our agenda.
It's like we're meeting on the 23rd.
I'm not trying to cut this off because I think it's a good
I think it's
discussion.
important.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
number
it's
6, the
based on-
unified system could more easily have discussions and take actions on important possible opportunities. A, share resources among teachers and schools, for example, develop shared teaching units and kits of materials for the next generation science standards with processes to calibrate instruction and assessment with debriefing sessions to improve the units for the following year.
I think the bullet can be just the first sentence in there.
Could I, or even just teacher professional development opportunities, and that could fall under almost all the rest of those bullets or letters could fall under that. Creating shared resources, report cards, that kind of stuff.
Okay,
And I'm fine with that, but when I said before that there's things in here that really excite me, this one really excites me because this has been a huge challenge for us, around the next generation science standards. The opportunities there, just feel really good to me. So I'm good, but I wanna make sure if our goal is to be able to stand up in front, we can't lose that example, because that's a fantastic example of how our students could benefit by a unified system where the barriers are reduced to working together.
Rod, did you want to eliminate everything after the first sentence?
I was just trying to keep it a nice bullet. So the
Yeah,
idea
I'm
of sitting
fine.
up in front of everybody and speaking about, it needs to be a 1 or 2 minute thing.
I'm trying to address his
And I
question.
think that's
Yeah.
where I'm at as well.
So let's,
But then this other
Well-
stuff is gonna stay in the report, right?
They can
You
read
know,
all night
I'm-
long if
They
they
could
want.
read it, you just.
I'm asking, I'm not suggesting,
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives, for somebody who hasn't studied this, it might give a good example, you know, to people who haven't taken a look at this, to have that as an example in there. I don't know where
Yeah.
you want it to appear, but I think it's valuable. B, change the location of grade levels to better serve particular age needs. For example, consideration of grade 6 moving to L and G.
Do we really want that in this report?
And
I-
frankly,
I would rather just delete that.
my principal actually has said that he'd rather keep our kids in Wyndham for 7th. So,
I just don't think it needs to be here.
I don't care if it's in or
Well,
not.
we're not
It
taking
doesn't
it
need to
out
be
of
part of
his
our
document, but we won't
front
put
We
it
won't
on
put it up to the
ours.
front pages, right?
Can I ask,
yeah.
John,
Mm.
this was something that came from principals, and the research is showing changes in grade levels. Is that what this is based on? Could you
That's
explain a
right.
little more what this is based
It's
on?
just
Because
that-
I recognize
yeah.
what Carolyn said, but that isn't the direction we're heading, taking the
Right.
7th grade back down. We're actually, research is showing that benefits in the opposite way. So could you just explain
Yeah,
what the
it's
principal
just,
said?
it's just the idea that as kids are changing in their development, they do better with different age groups. That's all. And you just sort of look at that. I mean, a lot of places go develop a K-1-2 school. And that seems to be a really good.
And I get all of that, I
Yeah.
completely concur with it, but it muddies the waters here where we need things to be concise and positive, and that's just, it's gonna bring a lot of bells.
opinions from all different.
I'd like to point out that that came from, that actually, I brought that up because after it was, actually, someone had mentioned it at the RED study. And I had brought that up at one of the earlier meetings, that there was talk about shifting the 6th graders up to Leland and Gray. And with the mud back then.
So it sounds like a principal agreed with your suggestion.
I have a
Wow.
proposal.
Yeah?
That
Well, it wasn't my suggestion, it
After-
was something that ticked me off, because all it's gonna do is take even younger kids and put them up with the higher grade kids when we have so much working with them at the elementary school level to do as far as social interaction and responsibilities, than to throw them in with 17 and 18-year-olds, which is.
I don't think that was the suggestion, but I'd love to hear what John.
No.
So my suggestion is that I've heard the kinds of thinking you're doing now, and I think I can take this discussion and draft something for you in the front part of the report for the next meeting. And you can keep going through this if you want, but I think I have a sense of what you want to see up there.
Would it go under, would it go under 5, page 5?
Yes.
That section?
Yes,
Okay.
up in there.
I think that's where it should be.
And I'm happy to do
Yep.
that. I think I have a sense of what you're looking for now.
We've
Okay.
only got till, there's only 7 items here.
Oh,
We
okay.
might as well just finish it,
That's fine, that's fine.
I think.
All right. So we want to eliminate that business of changing
I just don't think
location?
he's gonna move it up to the report.
Okay. All right, C, equalized services across schools called for in the Vermont Education Quality Standards, coordinate guidance and mental health supports across grades and schools, recognizing that these and other services are critical components in effective long-term support for children and families. Comment? Emily?
I'd love to. I mean, Carolyn, I can't remember if you were there. We attended a forum the other day about, for WSESU on, it was a school attendance council they had, and this was in Brattleboro, it was actually a legislative forum, but there were all kinds of educators in the room who were sharing, it wasn't just educators, it was mental health, the links between mental health, DCF, and public schools. And it is, I won't go into detail about what I learned, what we learned. I have a report here that I'd love everybody to see, but it is shocking to me the challenges that are happening in our schools today. I mean, Drew, you know more than anybody about the challenges around the opiate issues in this state and elsewhere. It's not just in this state. But anyway, this piece, I think is critical, and I don't even think we've touched on this enough. I'm very worried about our future around the needs of families today and our children, and I would love to be able to grow, regardless of Act 46, grow in this area. I think this is a critical bullet here.
Is everyone in agreement on that?
Yeah, this, again, this was just my personal.
Okay, all right. All right, D, develop extended experiences, 3 to 5 weeks, for children to attend a specialized program held at a particular school. Yeah? Okay. E, develop a common and clear understanding of the expectations for mastery of the Common Core standards, timing, instruction, assessment, and remediation. Yeah, we're all good with that? F, improve the standards-based report card with all teachers trained in the meaning and assessment of each standard. Monitoring student progress would have comparable information to identify needs for professional development. Sound good? All right. G, organize a pre-kindergarten system on a scale that provides families with multiple opportunities, provides clear expectations for kindergarten readiness, and offers professional development to teachers and providers. Yeah. H, develop a common teacher substitute system that would have a greater chance of recruiting and retaining a cadre of quality substitute teachers. Yeah. All right, 7, increase coordination and efficiencies, examples including building maintenance, improvement and capital planning, technology plans and purchases, payroll and bookkeeping, paperwork related to food service operations, and professional development focused on new teachers. This coordination and resulting efficiencies opens resources and leadership time to increase focus on student learning. Yeah?
Last sentence, pulled it all together.
Okay. And then, John, this is your comment, I guess, from what I have seen and heard about the current educational environment in your 5 towns and 5 schools. I suggest you review the statement below as a conclusion about the impact of governance change on student learning. The major intent of Act 46 is to move the state.
Carolyn, can I interrupt just a second?
Yeah.
The other committee came up with a way to do the conclusion that seemed to work for them, and that
Okay.
was to say, have each goal of Act 46, and have, these are the things that align with Act 46, and these things that don't align,
Mhm.
and they just had some bullets
was
down
great.
there. And
You
from
wanna-
what you've done, I can draft some
You
of
wanna
that.
do that?
And it
Yeah.
really seemed to work well for
We need
them.
a link to those goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
That's
so let me
nice.
draft that, and you can have it.
You know, one other
too.
comment, I would just, I was gonna make it during minutes, but let me just, now that I've remembered, when we talked about transportation, Emily and I had a discussion, and the language for that was supposed to be sent out, and I don't recall seeing it. You may have sent it, but I did not see it, so just, if that could be something that goes out, that would be great. All right, now are we gonna try and move forward with number 7 here, all of these pieces?
We need to start some of them at least.
Okay, why don't we get going on some of them? So,
I can do some of this quickly, I think.
okay, why don't you take over then, John?
The assets and debts piece.
If you could talk about, the pages are down here, but if you could just say them as
Right,
we're.
the assets and debts, we ended up comparing so many apples and orange situations that if we just took the last audit, which was of June 30, 2015, that's the last audit that everybody has, and I just used that data and put it in charts for you. And that'll be updated, by the time you're making presentations, that will be updated, your new audits should be in, and you can use that. You had asked about the consequences for not taking any action, so I put the language in there about what the law says is supposed to happen.
Where is that, John?
Page Look on page 12, but
Okay,
mine
That's
isn't
page
matching up
13.
with yours.
13.
What is it?
It's 13
13, thanks.
at the bottom. It starts.
Somehow the PDF and didn't line up.
There was a blank page.
Talking about the accent.
Oh, is that what it is?
Page 2 was blank.
The assets are on page
Oh,
12.
yeah, the assets are on.
Yeah, it's just really. So it says that,
I see
it's
what-
the beginning of study committee conclusions, yeah. Page 13, right?
Mhm. Yes, bottom page 6.
So basically, the district does three things. You do another evaluation relation to Act 46. You meet with people in the area, and you submit a proposal to the state. Secretary looks at the proposals and discusses them with you, proposes a plan to the state board by June 1st, 2018, to merge districts and change boundaries. And then the state board issues a required plan by November 3rd. That's when they issue the plan for what's going to happen. And then they also make annual decisions in FY20 about small school grants for districts that have not merged voluntarily. If you've merged, it becomes a merge grant, and you get it. So that was what you had asked for, what was going to happen.
Right.
Mhm.
Going
Okay.
the timeline.
All right. Good.
So the budget, elections, and public questions, I think I have a question for you there.
Did you want to talk about the name?
Oh, is
of
that the next one?
Unified
Yes.
Okay.
District?
Yes, so
Is that page 14 then?
it turns out you do need a name because the Secretary of State will be certifying that name after the election. So we tried to say the committee the name is temporary and they can name themselves later, but that's not going to work. So right now you're the Leland and Gray Towns Education District or something.
Does somebody already have West River or?
No, not in our area. The only other one would be if there was something north, above Jamaica, but I haven't heard anything called that at all.
No.
I would say that it would be great if we could look at that, a different name as opposed to the Leland Gray
I agree.
thing.
Mhm.
I think that,
Yeah.
before, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but the last one was called the Wyndham Central Education District. And I'm not suggesting that, because, I hate this word anyway, but it would be nice to take it away from, because Leland Gray will still be a school. I don't think it's necessarily the right thing to name the district.
I don't care what the name is.
West
So-
River.
I like West River.
Yeah.
Me too.
Pretty.
West River?
Yeah.
West
Because
River Unified.
Londonderry, I think, would be our only competition, and
Exactly.
they already have a,
Yeah, I don't think they're calling
Yeah.
anything.
yep.
West
So-
River Unified School District, West River,
Unified School District.
I mean, Jamaica, your Wyndham's really the only one that's not on. The rest of us are actually on.
We probably have some headwaters for part of
You
the West
do
River.
absolutely have headwaters.
As well as Saxon's River
Coming
and
right out of
Williams
Sparrows
River.
Brook.
So,
I always like to put the initials just to see what it looks like.
yeah, what is it,
Rude,
swear
W
word?
rude.
Oh, yeah. WZ.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
I like the one.
Something really rude.
I think you should make it educational district versus school district.
Okay.
It still is better.
Is that,
Okay, I think that's right.
but does
What
that,
did you say?
is there,
What better?
there's no requirement, Joe?
Educational district.
No, not that I know of.
West
Good,
River.
I
Let's
agree
see.
with that.
Yeah.
Unified
I like
educational
District.
district.
Yeah.
For education district.
Education.
Education or education?
I don't think it needs to be education, but it should be education.
There you go.
Rude.
And it's rude.
Wooed.
We don't,
Well, no, the W silent,
But
that
it's
happens.
silent.
The W silent, it's rude, I like it.
All right.
What was the next one?
Next one is,
Public questions and budget. okay.
budget, elections, and public questions.
Better than the red.
What article is that? Does it say?
Number 12.
12, thank you. Oh, yeah, I see it put in a bunch
Okay,
of
so
blank
that's page
pages.
19 of 32. On my, I'm looking at it on my iPad, so.
Oh, I had a big question on this.
Yes,
good.
Yes, Pam.
You guys, sorry, you might have had page 19. I don't know if I missed it, maybe, but I've read the minutes pretty closely. And so we're electing board members at the
What
same
article?
time we're voting for whether this passes. But then again, in 2020, we elect more board members?
Their terms
You
expire.
have to look at the
They're
chart.
two, yeah, I
Chart.
know, but it's, I still didn't get it. Why am
Well, they were staggered, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They
I?
had-
Yeah, but this is one-year term ending March 2020. So that would be the people elected in 2019.
No, it's, these people are elected and the term doesn't start till, and we can change this, but this way, the term doesn't start until the district actually becomes operational.
But they're working those first 2 years. So they get elected in
They're really-
2017, and then they have to get re-elected in 2019 for their terms?
No, 20.
Because it says,
2020.
it says the vote on the budget and election of board members will be on town meeting day, March 5th, 2019, in paragraph, Article 12. And it also says in Article 10 that initial board members will be voted on March
Okay,
7th, 2017.
I think that's 17. I will double
think-
check that
I think
to
it
make sure
is.
Because it's making it sound like
Thank
we're
you.
electing them
Good
multiple
catch.
times.
And I have a
Okay.
question about that.
No, Chris?
If we are voting, how do you vote in school board members if we haven't voted that this is going to go? It's going to be very complicated and difficult for that to happen at town meeting. So I'm wondering if there's a way that
Part of
we
the
can
law.
change in the parking lot?
It's part of actually 153. It was, it's not even part of 150, it's
Yeah.
part of 46, it's part of 153.
it's a long-standing law.
It's been there a long time.
Right, I just don't understand, that was one of the questions that came from one of our constituents, is how is that going to, because it's going to impact our town meeting immensely, trying to vote in new board members for the year, vote in members for this, even if this isn't that's what I'm saying.
It gets
This-
voted down,
Needs to be
If it gets
appointed.
voted down,
or if it gets
or
voted
how,
either way.
either
We
way.
dealt with that the last time.
So how though?
Yeah.
Because that's a question
I
that we
filed a
had.
petition because I was one of the ones who said I would actually serve on the board. I actually I went and got signatures and everything, and we decided to not move forward actually to present it, but we were ready for that.
If your term happens to be up the end of this year, and you need to put in a petition this year for your town to be on the school board you're on now, you do that. If you're willing to run again, right? I'm saying whoever has to put petitions in. You also put in a petition if you want to be on the other board
That's all.
to all the towns. So you have to get a petition signed.
Yeah.
So
Your
they would be
elections
on
is
both
by
boards at
floor.
once.
Yes.
They're by floor.
So
Yes.
those would be, the normal board elections would be by floor, and the other would be Australian ballot. So at least it would be
We don't
separated
use
in
state
process.
Two different
But they'd
processes.
have that all the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pam, you had a question?
I was just wondering if you could be on both boards. You can
Yeah.
run for both boards
Yes.
next
Yep.
year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, it's helpful.
So if we have a vacancy, we vote from the
You have a
floor.
vacancy.
We have a vacancy coming up,
Leland.
and then we vote, we nominate from the floor for that vacancy. And then we vote for Act 46, and we vote for
That
Board at the
board
same time.
for Act 46. We have an issue because we use, we don't vote at town hall, we vote at, we have no place to have our meetings, so we have it in the basement of Sunny Lane Daycare. And our town meeting is over 2:00 in the afternoon. But we have to vote, we all have to vote the same day, so we're gonna have to get approval to stay downstairs in Sunny Lane Daycare.
Well, it would be up to your town clerk to
Yeah.
how they wanna conduct the elections,
Yeah.
no different than any other
Yeah.
election, actually.
Yeah.
That's the way it
Well,
works.
he doesn't want it at town hall,
Right, so,
because they can't
yeah,
staff
we don't
both
do it at
places.
town hall either.
Yeah,
We do it at the firehouse in Newton.
yeah,
And one would be by Australian ballot, and the other would be.
yeah,
by the-
right,
One is required by
yeah.
law.
One more quick question on
Yeah,
this.
and
Sorry.
Act 46 is
Yeah,
Australian.
Drew.
ballot.
The at-large members, is that gonna be a problem this first go-around? Because we don't have all of the necessary, unnecessary.
And I
How
have
do
a
you-
follow-up question
I don't know how that works.
to this, and I think we need to have a conversation around this. And John, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When we came to this, I actually told you, I mentioned that I attended the WSESU meeting the other night, and their articles are quite different around this, but they are doing what we're doing as well. In fact, I think the idea may have come from them. Originally,
Thanks, Mike.
somebody mentioned it.
Yeah.
But they had an attorney recommend a different form of election process for them that is different than ours. And they were struggling around the conversation. And it was an attorney that told them to do it the way they did it. And that was that all of the members were voted the same way we're voting the at-large. So all the communities will be
Right,
voting.
right.
And we're talking about voting local, and.
Town by town.
Right, which I am much more comfortable with, because I don't think that Wyndham wants Newfane to have an input into the voting member that is the proportional
Right.
member. Now, that's fine on the at-large. So have you run that article by the AOE or whatever and have?
They have it now, and I'm waiting to hear
Okay.
back from them.
Okay, because I'm hoping that the way we're doing it, it works, because I think that's definitely more appropriate for our communities. It gives everybody security, where there's a proportional section, and that's all in that chart, and then there's two, I think we have two at-large,
Two at-large.
and the two at-large then are commingled, and everybody gets to, because we don't know what community they're coming from. But the other ones, I think each of our communities should be able to vote on. And this was a stumbling block for Dummerston last night. They were really concerned about that, and
Sure.
I understood why.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, so we'll have some feedback on that at some point? Good.
That's it. I've
Wouldn't-
had that question right along, and I was really interested, so I'd love to know what the answer is.
Wouldn't the easiest way to do that is not have any at-large members at first until you sit down and have your first actual budget vote of the 5 towns, and then
But
have
it's part
the
of-
at-large vote? Because
the-
then you'll have everybody together voting on the same thing.
But the
already,
at-large
instead
are
of-
part of the board.
Then you're just gonna, well, what you're gonna wind up having is you're gonna have 5 different towns trying to struggle and set up an election.
I don't
By
think it's any
Australian
different
vote.
than they're doing it with the proportional. We're all gonna have to do that anyway on the proportional, so all we're doing is we're
No.
filing either for our community or for our at-large position. Right, so when we take a petition, fill out a petition, we're either filing for my, if I were gonna file, could either file for Newfane, or I could file for at-large. And the Newfane one, in the way our articles have written, would be just voted on by Newfane. And if I filed for an at-large, that would go out as I would be a candidate in the 5 communities, and the votes would happen in the 5 communities. I don't see, and I also don't see how you could separate them, because they are part of and full members of, the at-large are
Well-
part of and full members of the board.
Chris?
How do we get the word out about, because it's very different in towns and where it's voted on by the
Yes.
floor. And you're talking in a couple of months that we need to have people not only running for the floor, even if they want to be on this other board, but also knowing about this at-large
Right.
piece.
Right.
And I think that's a big, huge thing to try to put into place in a couple of months.
We did,
So-
Yeah, I think.
we did do it last
I
time.
think the general force on that should come from within the school boards. I don't think that this committee bears the burden of finding people to run for the unified board. I think that.
I'm not
it's-
saying
what
to
you're
find
saying.
it, but I'm just saying to get the word out to people that this is what's happening.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
it's not the way it's
press
happened
releases
in the
and the usual
past.
things, but I think that the initial push on that should come from the individual 5 school boards as they exist now.
Could come from.
Yeah.
Emily?
It has to come from this committee, because
Just to make its way into these.
yeah, exactly. We have to be able to explain what we're proposing. And part of what we're proposing is the vote. So it's gotta come from us, I think. But I also will say that we had to address this challenge around the red, and we did. Everybody had filed in each community around the red. We had already done that. We've got to that point where everybody was filing in their community. So I think we can overcome it, but I agree with you, it's something that's gonna take a lot of explaining. We have to make sure we're very clear.
And the nice part is you can use simplified language. It doesn't have to be article-type language when you explain it, so it'll be a lot easier to explain, I think.
Okay, where are we?
I think the next
Where
one
are
is
we?
buildings.
We have
I
10 minutes.
Oh, I had a quick question, I'm sorry, about the budget pieces of it, because
Yep.
I was very confused. I thought Leland and Gray budgets would be separate from this. So how are we going to ensure that, or how does this work with, can you explain to me how this will work with an elementary school?
Sure.
and
It'll be
school?
one budget
Mhm.
for all the elementary schools and Leland and Gray and pre-K.
Right,
It's one budget.
and I'm thinking about disbursement though, how does that work?
It'll
to
be
The
one
superintendent
district.
does that,
Superintendent does it,
yeah.
It'll be 1 cost per pupil from
gotcha.
Now,
pre-K up.
okay, I'm gonna throw a wrinkle in here. unfortunately. So
We need
Great,
that.
that's what we need.
Just what we need, we have 10 minutes.
if, well, and I have to write you some language to consider, but I just got this feedback from the state. So if it is a modified unified union school district, and that one of the towns does not join, then the budget for the high school does have to be separated. So then there would be two votes. There would be a vote for the pre-K and elementary, and there would be a vote for the high school, and then the town that didn't join would also have their own elementary.
Right, just like last time.
Yeah.
Could you repeat
Yep.
that?
Okay,
So,
okay.
please.
So, if it's 5 towns,
Yeah,
there's one budget for the whole shooting match. If it's 4 towns, then it ends up being 3 different budget votes. One of them is the town that doesn't join, just their elementary school. Because they're still pre-K, pre-K 6, because because they're taking care of that. Because the town that didn't join isn't responsible for elementary, they don't get to vote on the other 4 elementary budgets. So there's an elementary budget that's only voted on by the 4 towns that are in the union. And then there's the high school budget that's voted by all Leland and Gray towns.
Right.
I got that.
So, is this, what you're describing is exactly what Chittenden East is doing right now, am I right, with Huntington?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so this is in practice today, and it's been for a few years that they've done it that way, because they have had a few follow-up votes trying to merge, but they still haven't, as far as I know.
I wouldn't, it actually does matter, but anyway.
But it's been in practice, we know
Yeah.
how it operates.
It's very awkward, but nevertheless.
Okay, well explained, let's move on.
Any other questions about budget, elections, and public questions? All right, Article 14, selling a closed
Sorry.
school.
So,
That language though is gonna be in there somewhere, that explanation that you just gave.
yes, I just got word I need to add that.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, I just put some language in there that I'm kind of negotiating with the AOE on about selling back a building. So right now, this is the coin of the realm for the language. And so you can't just give it to the town for $1 and they go sell it right away without what it says in there. Basically, paying the district back for whatever the district put into the,
Oh, this came from the
Yeah.
AOE, this language?
well, not directly,
But it's what the intent.
yeah. So,
I read that in the Brattleboro things, and I was gonna bring it up tonight.
Yeah, so it's-
They
Should we read
have
through
it
this?
in-
Yes.
And it makes
Okay,
sense.
let's read through this.
sure.
Capital
Yep.
improvements accounting for.
In the event that, and at such subsequent time as any of the real property excluding the land and buildings of the Leland and Gray High School conveyed to it by one or more of the forming districts is or are unnecessary to the continued operation of the unified district and its educational programs, the unified district shall convey such real property for the sum of $1 and subject to all encumbrances of record, the assumption or payment of all outstanding bonds and notes and the repayment of any school construction aid or grants as required by Vermont law to the town in which it is located. The conveyance of any of the above school properties shall be conditioned upon the town owning and utilizing the real property for community and public purposes for a minimum of 5 years. In the event a town elects to sell the real property prior to 5 years of ownership, the town shall compensate the unified district for all capital improvements and renovations completed after the formation of the unified district and prior to the sale to the town. In the event a town elects not to acquire ownership of such real property, the unified district shall, pursuant to Vermont statutes, sell the property upon such terms and conditions as established by the board. In the event that, and at such subsequent time as, the unified district determines that any real property, including land and buildings conveyed to it by the Leland and Gray Union High School District, is or are unnecessary to the continued operation of the unified district and its educational programs, the unified district shall, pursuant to Vermont statutes, sell the property upon such terms and conditions as established by the board. Boy, it really sounds like lawyer
That'll be
wrote
the
that.
that'll be the new board's nightmare, okay? So we don't, I think we just leave that just the way it is, because it's gonna be a nightmare if it ever happens.
Actually,
Patty.
And I have another question. What happens if Leland and Gray closes? There's no town that owns Leland and Gray, the building.
That's what that last paragraph is, the district
Oh,
sells it.
that's, okay. Oh, it said the high school district. Okay.
Well, conveyed to it by the Leland and Gray district, which includes this building and the land.
Okay. Okay.
So in the
So
first
we-
paragraph,
so-
when it talked about bonds and things like that, can you just elaborate on what that means a little bit more for me?
If there's a bond on the building, the town would have to be willing to take that over.
if they sell.
Or
what I
the
thought.
seller, or the purchaser would have to be willing to take that over.
You got a bond for a new roof?
Right, that's what I thought it was, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, any questions about that? All right,
Nope.
what else do we have? Any other items?
I have one more.
Patty?
Good.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
And I could ask it next time, but like Jamaica School, we have generators, so it's a community center, it's a emergency place.
It's not anymore.
It
It's not
isn't
the
anymore?
emergency place anymore.
It isn't?
No,
Okay.
the Masonic is, because of the flood, and
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
get there.
Okay. Well,
So-
anyway, it's a community center, so people go there and play basketball and blah, blah, blah. And actually, Leland and Gray, I think, has men's basketball. Is that something the new board would say yes or no, or whatever, make this stipulate? Okay, so someone called me and asked me about it, and I said I'd ask.
Okay,
I asked.
so we have 2 minutes left. I am definitely not gonna be here on November 21st, as I told everyone I'm gonna be in New York City. And I don't know if Angie can serve in my place as our alternate, but if not, we're not going to be represented. So, what agenda items, aside from adopt final report and articles in connections with citizens, do you want on that agenda?
So it should be review and adopt.
Okay,
Are we gonna have feedback by then from the AOE?
But, oh yes, by Monday, I think,
Yeah.
yes, they know we're meeting again Monday.
So is that a separate agenda item to review? Okay,
That'll be part of the review,
okay.
yeah. So I'll do the same thing, I'll highlight anything I've changed, so you can look at, so we can just look at what's highlighted.
Okay, so you're gonna add that language in from the state, right? And summarize this all up, and that's gonna be the final to submit, right?
If,
Providing everybody
we
says,
could
okay,
decide, right.
run it up the flagpole, see who salutes.
and on this, the student opportunities, is it just gonna be what we discussed? I mean, there are parts of this that I really feel are, as somebody said, fluff. Maybe it was Drew.
That was me.
Oh, that was you? Should have known. Should we weigh in with you about whether we want some of this?
From my point of view, you can say, don't include that as in the appendix. But I don't want to get into editing that with you.
Okay.
Because that's my memo to you.
All right,
And you can say, I don't want it in the report.
okay.
We should give feedback then, when we see what you've added.
All
Maybe,
right.
maybe it'll get cleared up without you having to.
Okay, fine. So you'll send this out in advance of the meeting?
Yes,
on
I
the
hope to get it done
21st.
tomorrow.
Again, I will not be
So I'll
here
be working all
Monday.
day tomorrow.
So, all right, anything else? Patty?
One more, my name's not under the committee members,
On
and
the front
Reynolds
page.
is, but
Oh, maybe
she's
it's
not.
not.
A lot, I've got the,
It's still not there.
it's still Ann Reynolds.
And what time does this 21st meeting
She's
start
Jamaican.
at?
I don't
Since,
have a clue.
was it 7?
I would assume 7.
It was 7.
I have
The
it
minutes?
as 7
21st.
on my calendar.
I had 7 too.
All right, anything else
Aye.
that comes before, that should come before us? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, non-debatable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
CK.
All right, thank you, everybody. And really, I
Nice
do
job,
appreciate the conversation. I know it's not easy,
So it's important.
but it's really important that we have the conversation.